How did the process begin for getting into this writing this book? Did you and Thomas know each other before, or how did that process go?
Well, again, Pact Publishing approached me. They had apparently been reading my blog, and Tom Duff and I had been doing a series of articles on my blog about Tivoli Directory Integrator, which is a tool that we use here as part of our account create process within Notes. And so he and I had a relationship. We felt comfortable with writing and knew each other's work style, and I knew that I could count on him in terms of a deadline.
Now, you're here in Richmond, Virginia. Where's Thomas located?
He's in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, so how did y'all write this book being across the continent from each other?
Well, fortunately, Dropbox had come on the scene just not a few months before we started the book. And additionally, we used Skype to chat and communicate, sometimes in audio or visual, but mostly just through chats. Right. So I'd go home in the evening and he would still be finishing up his day at work, and then we'd have like about a 2 to 3 hour window before it would be time for me to go to bed, and he'd really just be starting his evening time. So we came up with our own method for keeping track of versions using Dropbox, and set up a folder system, and based on the outline that we had prepared for the publisher, just worked off the outline and kind of went from there.
Was the process more daunting than you expected it to be? I mean, you go into it and you think, okay, we've got an outline. The publisher has accepted the outline. Man, this is going to be good. We know where we're going. Here we go down the trail. And was that pretty much how it went for you, or?
Well, everyone had told us that the first chapter was going to be the most difficult, and it truly was. We just had no idea how to approach it. We had an outline, of course, but it was well, okay, are you going to write this first and then I'm going to take the next pass, or are we going to each write a chapter, or is it you going to write this chapter and I'm going to write the next chapter? I mean, we really had to kind of figure out how we were going to write the book. And so what we settled on, and this is the process that we used largely throughout the book, was that frequently one or the other would write a quick draft, and then the other person would kind of do a run through and fill in, whether it be for content or for sentence structure or whatever. And then we'd kind of do that several more times until we lost track of who had written what. And as part of the review process, all of the reviewers commented that they could not tell who had written what, and they thought that it was one person that had written.
So you established a voice pretty early on.
But that was the most difficult part. And then once we had that established, then the chapters weren't so difficult to write in terms of format. Some of them were more difficult in terms of content because of the number of pages we had to write, or the type of test environments that we had to set up in order to capture screenshots. I mean, some of the chapters had anywhere from 30 to 40 screenshots that we had to be able to accurately, capture the material and display it. And we started to kind of have fun with that, and that we didn't want to just have every screenshot show Tom Duff and Marie Scott which is actually what we were doing. So I got pretty adept at using Photoshop and Paint to create little user scenarios, and there are a lot of little Easter eggs if you start looking through the chapters in terms of names of people.
I thought y'all did a good job with the images, because you can look at these kind of guides, and sometimes the screenshots are just useless in essence. And I thought y'all did a really nice job of highlighting what you were talking about and everything. So, which is important, I think.
We worked really hard on that, and that's one thing that we got a lot of feedback on. So what happens when you're writing a book like this, that you have deadlines for each chapter. So when you prepare your outline, you have to come up with an idea of how many pages you're going to have for a chapter. So if we were writing the chapter on Sametime Mobile, we had to say, okay, how many pages would we actually need to write about that? So, you kind of just pick a number. So, okay, 25 pages.
Right.
So when you're writing it, do we really have 25 pages worth of content? Do we need more images? Do we need fewer images? And so it kind of got a little bit, editorial in terms of, do we need to, to break it down like that? So once you submit all your chapters, then the tech reviews come back in and they will comment, you might need to include some more information here,
right.
Or can you check the validity of this, or on some chapters they basically said, okay, this looks good, I don't see any changes that you need to make. But it's a vetting process, which you want to do. Some people had asked us if we were kind of concerned about having someone criticize
Right.
what you write, and it is a little different if you've never had anybody, work or had worked with an editor before, because you just have to remind yourself, okay, an editor knows what they're doing, that's their job, and they're there to make your writing look good. So it was a little bit of an adjustment. But
Did the publisher give you a hard deadline, or not a hard deadline, really, a hard number for the number of pages or anything? And so you found yourself shifting pages between chapters at times, or
it was actually part of our outline process. We negotiated prior to signing a contract how many total pages,
right.
and then a total per chapter. We really only had 2 chapters that we had to do a shift for.
Right.
So we took 5 from one and added it to another. But in the second and final drafts, we were able to add a little bit more content because, at that point, the publisher wants to make sure that the content is accurate. So you have a little bit more leeway. You don't have a lot because at that point, the publisher is thinking, okay, I'm going to have a 300-page book, and they're already working on production and production costs. So they don't want you to, add 200 additional pages just right out of the blue.
was there anything that you thought you would have control over that it turns out through the publishing of the book or whatever that you didn't have control over? Maybe it's title, or maybe it's the cover, or whatever, or the way the chapters lined up, or the text lined up, or anything like that, or just didn't think about that? You just thought about writing.
The cover.
Really?
The cover art. We thought we would have some choices about what the cover art would be,
right.
And the actual title of the book we negotiated back and forth on, and finally kind of worked with them to come up with a compromise.
Sure.
But the cover art we had no idea.
Were there any other kind of gotchas like that? As you finished the book, and it went off, and you got your copies back and everything. Were there any gotchas besides the cover then that you're like?
No, because when you're working on specifically for Pact, you're working with their template, so
right.
and in Word, and so you don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of formatting, and that's different with different publishers.
Yeah.
If you've got some ideas for example, if you wanted to come up with the next new format for a textbook, this wouldn't be the publisher that you wanted to go to because they have very rigid standards in terms of how they set things up. But there are publishers who are willing to accept, new ideas for format and things like that, like O'Reilly and others. But so in terms of format, we really didn't have any surprises, and they didn't cut any material from the book. So
right.
Everything we wrote was there. So
okay. So Pact just kind of has a UI standard essentially, and you have to live within that.
It
Okay.
makes it very easy once you get used to using it, and in terms of going back and forth with them in regards to making changes, it's very easy to work around. And I'm sure for them, because they standardize on their editorial process, it makes it their rapid to idea to print concept, because they do print a lot of books that are written by people who work with products or develop in them. If you look at their website, that's something that they try and do. They go out and get people who kind of practice what they write. So, these aren't necessarily people who would be concerned about, coming up with a new, layout.
Right.
So,
Right. Would you do it again?
we've actually started another one. So,
What's the subject going to be?
this one's going to be Sametime 852 Administration. And we're actually working on this with another co-author, Gabriella Davis, who is a consultant for a company called the Turtle Partnership in the UK, and one of her primary business areas is Sametime. And so we'll have 3 time zones to work around.
Wearing out Dropbox with that.
And Skype, though we kind of think that Gab doesn't sleep, because I think she's always on Skype. It's going to be about 9 months to finish, so we're shooting for September of 2011. So we're chapter 3 is almost ready to go.
The book is available in Amazon, and also Pact has their own site. And Amazon right now, it has a 5-star rating. That's pretty good.
We've encouraged, at Lotus here this year, we encouraged IBMers and business partners who have the book and who have read the book, or customers who have read the book, to go out to Amazon to fill out reviews, because reviews help us to know areas where we need to improve.
I know one last thing. As y'all were planning the book, and you were thinking, okay, this is a user guide, what was the one thing that you both wanted the user to take away about Lotus Sametime 8?
The way we wrote it was that the user could take a book, and by user it could be anybody. Right. So if a CIO bought the book, if a CEO was given the book, if a help desk was given a book, or an end user was given a book, that they could scan through it and pick and choose a chapter, and that the chapters could hopefully stand alone and give them, at a end user level, the information that they needed to accomplish a task. So we were very task focused.
Accessibility. That's the one thing. You made it very accessible then, no matter what was they were looking for. See, you did it and you didn't even know you were doing it.
We kind of fought it because we had a couple of the reviewers came back and said, well, you really need to add a Sametime architecture diagram. And we said, no, we don't need to add this, because this book is for users.
That can be in the admin guide you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. But users don't care about architecture. They care about how they would add a picture to a Sametime chat, or how they would add smileys so that, or if they need to record a meeting that they could use for future training resources, how would they do that? So that's what we set out to accomplish. So.
All right. Anything else you want to share about the process before we say goodbye?
I would encourage anybody who is thinking about it to do it. And if they have any questions about the process, they can contact me about what you need to do to prepare to submit something to a publisher for an idea. I can help them get started.
All right. Well, this is Sam Kennedy with VCU Technology Services, and Marie Scott, who is Director of Email Services. And thanks for joining us.